So with Kingdom Hearts 3 only a few weeks away, it's time for a quick recap for everyone who has no idea what they're getting into. This is Map Reviews, and we're about to go over the entire Kingdom Hearts storyline leading up to Kingdom Hearts 3. First is Kingdom Hearts X back cover, which is basically a glorified hour-long cutscene. A long time ago, the entire planet wasn't broke up into a bunch of different pieces with a bunch of cloaked people watching over a small town. But one of the cloaked guys disappears, leaving 5 of them to prepare for something called the Keyblade War. But while preparing for the war, they discover that there's a traitor amongst their ranks trying to spread darkness. How do they know? Because one of their Pokemon is covered in black paint. But who's the traitor, you ask? Well, we don't know because it's never revealed, so this whole movie is just a back and forth game of Clue. One thing that does happen though is that one of the cloaked guys is given a Keyblade with a magic eyeball in it, and is told to pass it down so that another cloaked guy can pull a That's So Raven and gaze into the future. But that's not all. You can either finally understand what Kingdom Hearts actually is, or you can trade it all for what's inside this box. There's also the tie-in game Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, but it was recently revealed that the game's story won't be updated before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out, so it doesn't matter. Next we have Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, where the series tries to take itself way more seriously than it should. So 3 friends Aqua, Terra, and Ventus are preparing for their Mark of Mastery exam, and they talk about how great it is that they're such close friends. Gee, can you tell if something bad is gonna happen because I can't? So they go to the exam where they're inspected by Mark Hamill and Leonard Nimoy, otherwise known as Ericus and Xehanort. But during the inspection, Xehanort sprinkles some darkness into those orbs of light that nobody seems to notice for some reason, hinting at how he's secretly evil. Then Aqua and Terra fight each other when Terra uses the power of edginess, or darkness if you prefer. So Aqua passes and Terra fails, and Ventus wasn't really part of the exam but fought the orbs anyway because he just really wanted to be included. Xehanort is secretly plotting a scheme with the boy in black because I guess black is really into fashion around here. Ericus warns Aqua of creatures called the Unversed and is sent to beat them up while spying on Terra because he still needs a babysitter at the age of 26. Meanwhile, Xehanort tells Terra that he believes in him more than Ericus and makes him question his relationship with the darkness. But then he disappears and Terra goes off to find him. Then Ventus is visited by that boy in black named Vanitas, who scares him into thinking that Terra will become evil. So Ventus runs away from home in search of Terra, and Aqua is sent to bring them back, so she's basically just gonna be a glorified babysitter in this game. So Terra goes from place to place beating up bad guys until he comes across Maleficent and is tricked into committing murder by stealing Aurora's heart. She then tells him that Xehanort told her about the outside world and how darkness can be used to take over the universe, leaving Terra to feel guilty over killing Aurora. But don't worry, Ventus and Aqua bring her back to life and beat up Maleficent for good measure. But Aqua and Ventus hear about the evil things Terra was doing and confront him in Radiant Garden. They get into a fight and Terra gives him the middle finger to look for Xehanort by himself. He finds out that he was kidnapped by a dick named Braig and battles him to free his master. But he accidentally uses the power of darkness to win and convinces himself that he failed his surrogate dad. But Xehanort tells him that it's a good thing to use the darkness and gives him the title of master. But little does Terra know that Xehanort was pretending to be kidnapped and that Briggs is one of his secret henchmen. Aqua walks around for a while until she finds a random girl and saves her from some Unversed with the help of Mickey Mouse. The little girl tells Aqua that her name is Kairi and she gives her a protective spell to shield her from evil. And Kairi's grandma tells her a story about how Jesus will one day return and the true believers will be welcomed into the light. So Ventus becomes friends with these 2 guys for no other reason than to tie into the previous games, and the trio eventually travel to Disney Town. They play some badly programmed mini-games, eat some ice cream, and get Pete thrown in jail because he's a selfish asshole. But Maleficent shows up to break him out of prison that nobody seems to notice for some reason. Terra travels to Destiny Island where he finds 2 little boys and decides to give one of them the power to wield the Keyblade. He chooses the one with the white hair, but personally I would have went with the one with the brown hair. But Ventus finds out that he was turned into a weapon by Xehanort and that Vanitas is actually his evil twin. It's also revealed that Ericus knew about it and was keeping Ventus under house arrest. He goes to Ericus to yell at him for lying, and Xehanort warns Terra that Ericus is gonna kill Ventus. Terra jumps in to protect Ventus and uses darkness to fight Ericus. But Ericus tells Terra that he's sorry for not believing in him, which makes Terra want to give his dad a great big hug. But oh, too late, because Xehanort stabs Ericus in the back, turning him into vanilla milk powder. Then Xehanort reveals that he was actually evil and summons a black hole to destroy their home. Ventus ends up at Destiny Island where Vanitas tells him that if he doesn't fight him, he'll kill his friends. Aqua finds out that Ericus was killed by Xehanort and that something big is going to happen in the Keyblade Graveyard. The trio meet up for some dramatic friend talk and are finally confronted by Xehanort and Vanitas. Xehanort reveals that he was planning on finding a way to unlock Kingdom Hearts to become God, and that he needs Terra's body and Ventus' sibling rivalry with Vanitas to make it happen. Then Xehanort reveals that he's wielding the Keyblade that can see into the future. Could this mean that he's the long-lost grandson of Luxu? Only only Nomura knows. So they have this big, epic battle with mountains and ice and flying keyblades, and it is the coolest thing ever! At least if you're watching the final mix version. So Ventus beats up Vanitas to protect Aqua when it's revealed that the Unversed were actually coming from Vanitas all along. So the Ven twins morph into the X-Blade and have this big battle inside their mind or something. One glitchy finisher later, and Ventus destroys the X-Blade, which kills Vanitas and puts Ventus into a coma. Meanwhile, Xehanort pulls a Captain Ginyu and steals Terra's body, becoming a new Tanner Terra. But Terra's spirit lives on, and he puts his armor together to beat the shit out of Xehanort. Meanwhile, Aqua is rescued by Mickey Mouse, and they work together to shatter the X-Blade from the outside, which causes a huge explosion, leaving everyone scattered. Aqua wakes up in Yensid's tower and finds that Ventus is still in a coma, so she takes him back to their old house and somehow completely changes the building and the landscape. She places Ventus in a secret room where he'll be kept safe, and then goes out to look for Terra. She finds him wandering Radiant Garden, but it's revealed that Xehanort is still controlling him. So Aqua beats him up, causing Xehanort to lose control, but he manages to stab himself, which somehow gives him amnesia, and he sinks into a purple puddle in the ground as Aqua jumps in after him. She sacrifices herself to send Terra back to the surface, which leaves her trapped in the Dark World for about 12 years. But Xehanort is still in control and is eventually found by Ansem the Wise. He becomes his apprentice and teams up with Brig to secretly stab him in the back and take over his research. Meanwhile, Ventus's heart is wandering around in limbo until it comes across a boy named Sora. It turns out that Sora is actually friends with Riku, who Terra gave the power of the Keyblade to, and actually saved Ventus's life by somehow being born at the exact same time Xehanort left him on the island, or I don't know, but it's a Square Enix game, so you don't care. So Ventus asks Sora if he can rent his body for a while, and thus Sora starts his business as a living hotel room. Next is the original Kingdom Hearts game, taking place in 2002 when everything was simple and clean. Yeah, that was a terrible pun, and I'm a terrible person for saying it. 10 years after the events of Birth by Sleep, Sora is hanging out with Riku and Kairi, who I guess traveled there in between games. They live life on Destiny Island and talk about exploring the outside world. Their plan? To set sail in the ocean on a very small wooden raft with very little navigation technology and only a handful of coconuts for food. You know, the more you think about it, the Heartless actually saved their asses. Sora scratches a picture expressing his love for Kairi in a secret cave when a creepy-looking cloak guy shows up to tell him, "You are not ready to explore the world." But Sora tells him, "Yes, I am," and the cloak guy just decides to fuck off. So in a kingdom far away, Donald and Goofy receive a message from Mickey Mouse, who is now their king, and are told that dark forces are destroying the worlds, and that they must travel to Traverse Town to find some kind of key. Then the Heartless attack Destiny Islands, and Riku explains to Sora that they can use the darkness to abandon their families and visit the outside world. They're swallowed up by the darkness, but Sora is saved thanks to Terra giving Riku the power to wield a Keyblade, but the Keyblade decided that Riku is a dick and goes to Sora instead. He goes into the secret cave and finds that Kairi is turning into a zombie, when a door suddenly opens and sends her ghost flying into Sora. Sora then gets into a fight with Darkseid, and he's flung into Traverse Town where he meets up with Donald and Goofy. They meet up with some Final Fantasy characters who explain stuff about the Heartless and a guy named Ansem, and the trio set off to save the universe. They travel from world to world based on whatever properties Squaresoft could afford at the time, beating up Heartless and sealing keyholes. A couple of times Sora sees Kairi walking around, who may or not be there because she's still a ghost. They track down Riku inside the belly of a whale, and Sora is like, "Come on, Riku, we're supposed to be friends." But Riku's like, "No way, dude, I'm on the dark side now." They find out that a witch named Maleficent, remember her from Birth by Sleep, is leading a handful of Disney villains to capture 7 women who somehow hold the power to unlock Kingdom Hearts. Of course, our heroes beat them up, and they make their way to Hollow Bastion where they come across Riku again. See, Kairi ended up losing her heart, and Maleficent tells Riku that he can save her if he works with the forces of darkness. Riku tells Sora, "You don't care about Kairi, you only care about having fun with Disney characters," and then uses the Force to take away his Keyblade. But Sora tells Riku that he doesn't need the Keyblade because his friends are his power, and the Keyblade just decides to go back to him, making that previous bit of drama completely pointless. They kick his ass and he runs like a pussy, and the trio travel up the tower to beat up Maleficent. But Riku meets that cloaked guy from earlier who tells him the Keyblade left you because you're a wimp. And Riku says, "What can I do to become strong?" And he says, "Give me your body." And he says, "Okay." Sora and company beat up Maleficent, but Riku shows up with his own Keyblade, stabbing Maleficent and turning her into a dragon. But they kill her in the next scene anyway, so it was kind of pointless. Sora goes after Riku and he finds out that he's being possessed by that cloak guy who's actually that Ansem guy that the FF characters were mentioning earlier, and also finds out that Kairi is one of the 7 princesses of Heart and that she was inside him all along. Sora manages to defeat him, leaving his Keyblade behind, and Sora uses it to stab himself to save Kairi and the other princesses. This turns him into a Heartless, but through the power of love, Kairi protects Sora and turns him back to normal. They have to escape Hollow Bastion since it's being overrun by Heartless, and they need a special gummy piece to get back. They They retrieve the gummy piece and Kairi decides to give Sora her good luck charm, which turns his Keyblade into a more powerful form. Meanwhile, Riku is wandering a dark fog and is greeted by a faint voice who tells him that they must work together to close the door. Sora and his friends go back to Hollow Bastion, seal the last keyhole, and go after Ansem for the final battle. But Ansem tries to summon Kingdom Hearts and use the darkness inside, but Sora tells him that Kingdom Hearts is light, which pretty much kills him off. The trio try to close the door when Riku arrives to help out, accompanied by Mickey Mouse, and the inner child in all of us fangasms with delight. They close the door and Riku tells Sora, "Treat her good, brother." And Sora tells Kairi that he'll be back someday and disappears as all the worlds the Heartless destroyed are brought back to life. Kairi then finds Sora's love letter to her inside the secret cave and makes one for him in return, and all the adult fans cry like little babies. Next up is Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, a horrible Game Boy Advance game turned into a horrible PS2 game. Sora, Donald, and Goofy are in search of Riku and Mickey Mouse when they come across Pluto, who seems to have a knack for popping in and out of these games. They follow him down the yellow brick road and eventually find that land of departure place that was changed into a new place called Castle Oblivion. How? Don't ask, it'll make things easier. They go inside and are confronted by a cloaked guy, no relation, who tells Sora to believe in the heart of the cards to find his missing friends. Also, there's one or two explanations about losing memories the higher you go up the castle, but don't worry, they won't stop reminding you. A few floors up, Sora remembers that he was friends with another girl named Namine, who really likes her scrapbook, and she's being held prisoner by a whole bunch of cloaked guys. He travels up the castle to rescue her, but comes across Riku, who is trying way too hard to be Shadow the Hedgehog. Sora beats him up and chases after him, but soon comes across one of the cloak guys named Vexen, who reveals that he made Riku into an edgelord. Sora beats him up, of course, but just before Vexen can reveal the cloaked people's big secret plan, he's killed by another cloaked guy named Axel, who is in real desperate need of a haircut. But Riku is still a dick and reveals that Sora was never friends with Namine because the good luck charm he got from her was fake. Sora tries to go after him, but Donald and Goofy start to suspect that something isn't right. Sora gets angry at them and goes to rescue Namine by himself. Axel also has a change of heart and lets Namine go to find Sora. And when they find each other, Namine tells Sora that everything is a lie. The memories, the good luck charm, their friendship, even the cake. So Riku shows up for one last ass whoopin' because he really seems to like it, when another cloaked guy named Larxene shows up to explain everything. Namine has the power to delete memories and make up new ones, and the cloak guys were using her to brainwash Sora to use his Keyblade to overthrow their organization. She also reveals that Edgelord Riku was a fake all along, but we all know that the real Riku isn't an Edgelord. But now Sora knows too much and Larxene decides to kill him, which seems pretty counterintuitive to the plan. But Donald and Goofy show up just in time. They kill Larxene because she's a bitch, and Namine explains how everything can go back to normal if they get to the 13th floor. But it's guarded by Marluxia, who's actually the first cloaked guy from the beginning of the game. The trio chase after him but come across Axel one more time, as he reveals that there might be a secret connection between him and Sora. But there's no time for answering questions in this series, so they just beat the shit out of each other and Sora wins. They reach Marluxia and team up with Edgelord Riku to kick his ass. Then Edgelord Riku decides to wander off because that's what edgelords do. Namine explains that in order to fix Sora's brain, they need to forget about everything that happened in this game. But Sora goes along with it because who in their right mind would want to remember this game? So Namine puts Sora, Donald, and Goofy in a year-long sleep and starts working on fixing their memories.
But I'm not done yet!
Underneath Castle Oblivion, Riku wakes up and is told by a mysterious voice to travel up the castle to set himself free. While traveling the castle, he's guided by Mickey Mouse, who's communicating with Riku using the Force. And this was before Disney bought Lucasfilms. Meanwhile, a few other cloaked guys are talking about the secret plans of their organization that may or may not be explained in future games. As Riku goes up the castle, a lot of people come up to him and tell him that he's afraid of the dark. But Riku tells them, "No, I'm not." And they're like, "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not." 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 "Yes, you fucking are!" So after killing one of the cloaked guys, Riku is told by another cloaked guy that he was the one who destroyed Destiny Islands. And Sora shows up to kill him for it. But Namine shows up in Riku's head telling him to use the darkness, and Riku uses it to defeat Sora, who is actually the cloaked guy in disguise. He runs away but is killed off anyway by Edgelord Riku, led by Axel, who isn't quite dead. Meanwhile, Riku finally finds out who the mysterious voice guy is from the beginning of his campaign, and it's a guy named Diz. He tells Riku that he'll eventually have to choose between the light and the dark, and that the choice he makes will decide his destiny. But then he comes across Edgelord Riku, who's really trying too hard to be Shadow the Hedgehog now. The real Riku defeats him, but don't worry, he'll be back in Kingdom Hearts 3. So Riku finds Namine, despite that he's in the basement and she's supposed to be on the 13th floor of the castle, and he learns about everything that happened to Sora. He tells Namine that he will choose neither the light or the dark, and decides to walk the twilight between. But before he can leave the castle, he must first defeat Ansem, who is also not quite dead. He defeats him with the power of darkness, overcoming his fear and accepting the dark as part of his being, and teams up with Mickey Mouse to help Sora recover his memories. Next up is Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, which is literally literally the stupidest name for a video game I've ever heard. Remember when Sora stabbed himself and turned into a Heartless in Kingdom Hearts 1? Well, it turns out when he turned into a Heartless, he also created his Nobody, which is basically a zombie when you think about it. But instead of looking like Sora, he looks like Ventus because Ventus is still renting Sora's body. He's eventually found by Xemnas, who's the leader of those cloaked guys from Chain of Memories, and is invited into Organization 13. Xemnas names him Roxas, and Roxas finds out about the organization's plan to create a fake Kingdom Hearts so that Roxas can be a real boy. He also starts hanging out with Axel, the sole survivor of the cloaked guys from Chain of Memories, and Axel decides to adopt him and teach him about human nature and all that other cheesy stuff. He also becomes friends with Xion, the mysterious 14th member of the organization that still decides to be named 13 despite the change in numbers, because Organization 14 wouldn't sound as awesome. They both have the power to wield the Keyblade, creating a mysterious connection between them. But who cares? They're such good friends and love to eat ice cream, and surely nothing will ever go wrong. But something goes wrong when Xion gets into a fight with Riku, who calls her a fake, because she's secretly another Sora clone, but you're not supposed to know that yet. This makes Xion angry, and for some reason she wants to learn more about herself. She goes to Castle Oblivion, where a bunch of unfamiliar memories rush into her brain, and she falls into a coma. But she wakes up later on and joins forces with Riku, betraying Roxas and Axel in the process. Riku takes Xion to Namine, who explains how she's Kairi's Nobody, who was born when Sora stabbed himself. You know, because Kairi was still inside him at the time. She tells Xion that she was created as part of Xemnas' evil plan to keep Sora from waking up by being the vessel of his memories of Kairi, and also to create a super clone of Roxas. She decides to go back to Sora, but Namine warns her that everyone will forget her, which is kinda weird because nobody forgot about Roxas. But she still decides to go back to Sora anyway. Roxas begins to question Axel since he's been keeping secrets from him, and learns that a boy named Sora is connected to him and Xion. Roxas gets mad at Axel for not telling him the truth and decides to quit the organization to search for Xion on his own. But Axel finds out that Xion is hiding in Twilight Town, kicks her ass, and brings her back to the castle where he passes out. Xemnas takes Xion away from Axel to experiment on her, and we cut to Roxas sitting on the clock tower with no ice cream. But Xion shows up to give him ice cream and tells him that she's gonna kill him to complete Xemnas' plan. Roxas battles with Xion and defeats her, causing her to fade away, where she gives an emotional goodbye, and he says the stupidest line in the entire series. He goes back to the organization to avenge her by destroying the fake Kingdom Hearts, but is stopped by Riku. Riku tells Roxas that he can't fight Xemnas because he's not at full power, but Roxas decides to try anyway. So Riku is left with no other choice but to stop him. He activates his dark powers, turning into Ansem and knocking Roxas out, taking him to Diz, who sends him in a computer copy of Twilight Town to hide him from the organization. So Xion disappears from everyone's memories, which is super sad, leaving Roxas to live like a real boy, as he gets ready for his final week of summer vacation. Now we have Kingdom Hearts 2, the only game in the series that everyone loves because it actually improves on the mechanics of the original. Roxas is still enjoying his summer vacation when he starts to notice that strange things are happening. White creatures are attacking the city, and Roxas begins to remember things that happened to Sora, because Namine is still fixing his brain and the two are connected. A few days go by and he's confronted by his old friend Axel, who tells him to join him or die. But Roxas refuses and just goes back to hanging out with his friends. But one day he meets Namine, who tells him all about his old life in the organization. She's working with Diz, who tells Roxas to go to the old mansion, meet up with Sora, and return the rest of his memories. He makes his way there when Axel shows up and is like, "If I can't have you, no one can." But Roxas beats him anyway, and he just decides to fuck off. Roxas approaches the pod Sora is sleeping in and goes back inside him. Boy, people really like to go inside him, don't they? So Sora, Donald, and Goofy travel around Twilight Town until they end up fighting those white guys from before. But Mickey shows up to rescue them and gives them money that Riku stole from Roxas to take the train. They meet up with 3 of Roxas's old friends, have a small talk, and Sora starts crying, but it's actually Roxas crying from the inside. Now don't that move you? So the trio take the train with Riku, Axel, and Namine watching from afar, as it turns out that Axel is secretly aiding them and is no longer working with the organization. But then why did he want to kill Roxas? And why does he kidnap Kairi later? I'm just saying it doesn't add up. So the trio reaches Yensid's tower where they come across Pete from Birth by Sleep. And did it really take Pete 10 years to do something? And why did Maleficent neglect to invite him to the round table of Disney villains in KH1? Now well, he calls out some Heartless and our heroes defeat them. They travel up the tower and meet Yensid, and he explains that the Heartless are still attacking along with a new threat. He explains how those white guys attacking Sora and Roxas are actually called nobodies, that are basically the strong will of someone who loses their heart. So yeah, zombies. He also tells Sora to see the 3 good fairies for some new clothes because hot damn, that color choice really doesn't look good on him. They give him new clothes containing new powers, but they neglect to tell Sora to not rely on it too much, or you'll get stuck with a shitty form that doesn't heal, takes double damage, and will leave you completely fucked if you're fighting Demyx. The trio set off on their new adventure just as Maleficent returns from the dead, because of some vague explanation that may or may not have been given in Chain of Memories. So our heroes return to Hollow Bastion and meet up with all those Final Fantasy characters from before, like that ninja ant guy with a sword gun that you beat up in Olympus Coliseum. They tell them to be on the lookout for the Heartless and the organization when the remaining members come up to confront them. One of them is actually that Braid guy from Birth by Sleep, and he mentions how he knows Sora because he knows Roxas because he knows Ventus. I wonder if I can turn that into a tongue twister. So our heroes go from world to world battling the forces of evil, including Maleficent and Pete, but they eventually go back to Hollow Bastion to meet up with Mickey Mouse in Ansem's secret research room. After getting into some misadventures in cyberspace, Mickey shows up to reveal that the Ansem they thought they knew wasn't Ansem at all. Remember how Xehanort took over Terra's body and was transported by Aqua out of the realm of darkness to Radiant Garden, where he was found by Ansem the Wise and then was given a job as a scientist at his castle? Well, it turns out that Terranort was the guy they were fighting all along. See, he and Briggs stabbed Ansem the Wise in the back and sent him to the Dark Realm, in which Terranort took Ansem's identity and continued his forbidden research on the Heartless. And Terranort was actually Xehanort's Heartless. And as a result of stabbing himself in the Keyblade, he also created his nobody. And that nobody is Xemnas, the leader of the organization. Did that blow your mind? I know mine was, because of how complicated and confusing it was. But Hollow Bastion is under attack, and the gang head out to save the day. They come across Demyx and kill him off, followed by a dramatic scene where Goofy dies but comes back anyway because Disney wouldn't do that. Or would they? Then Sayak shows up to reveal the organization's plan to create a fake Kingdom Hearts and how Sora has been helping them the whole time. This causes Sora to conflict with the idea of using the Keyblade to fight, but just goes back to using it to fight immediately after, so this inner conflict was basically pointless. Oh, and they also talk about how they kidnapped Kairi because that's all Kairi is good for. So the trio retrace their steps and kill another organization member and eventually go back to Hollow Bastion to fight a robot takeover. They defeat the evil computer and Tron sends out some pixie dust that makes everyone remember that Hollow Bastion is actually named Radiant Garden. So they go back to Twilight Town, where Roxas's friends tell them about the computer Twilight Town made by Diz to hide Roxas, and how it could hold the key to finding Xemnas' lair. They join up with Mickey Mouse again, who sadly never becomes a party member in the rest of the game, and find a secret passage to the organization's lair. They're ambushed by nobodies, but Axel shows up to sacrifice himself and save Sora and transport them to the lair. They make their way towards the castle when Sora has a fight with Roxas in his mind. After Sora beats him, Roxas has one more bro talk with Axel. Sora returns to the real world and they eventually make it to the castle. Naminé breaks Kairi out of prison and they try to escape before they get stopped by Sayax. But Sayax is stopped by Riku, who shows Kairi that he's still taking Terranort's form. Sora defeats Braig and travels out the castle and reunites with Kairi and Riku in the most tear-jerking scene you will ever see in a video game with Donald Duck. Please don't disappoint me, Kingdom Hearts 3. They go to kill Sayax and another member who calls Sora Roxas, and he's all, "Stop calling me Roxas, you assholes!" But Riku tells him, well, you kind of are Roxas because he's your nobody. He talks about how he had to fight him and become Terranort, but we already saw this in Days, so let's continue. Mickey is fighting through the castle and saves Diz from some nobodies, but then Diz reveals that he was really Ansem the Wise in disguise. He explains a bunch of stuff we already know and how he's out for revenge against Terranort. He takes out a machine and aims it at the fake Kingdom Hearts just as Xemnas shows up to gloat. Our heroes try to save Ansem, but he chooses to sacrifice himself and blows up Xemnas' Kingdom Hearts. And this turns Riku back to normal. Why? Well, it's Kingdom Hearts, so just make up whatever reason you like. They get to the top of the castle where Maleficent and Pete help out a bit, and it's time for the final battle against the biggest ham since Tommy Wiseau. They beat him and he fades away, and Naminé summons a portal to send everyone home. Then she and Roxas talk about how they'll always be together as long as Sora and Kairi are together, so it's basically double OTP. But it turns out that Xemnas isn't quite dead, and Sora and Riku get left behind. They have one more battle, and after an obnoxious QTE segment, they finally kill him. Sora and Riku are taken to the Dark Realm, have a little bro talk, and receive a letter from Kairi, which is actually a poem from the opening cinematic. This summons a door back to Destiny Islands for some reason, and they go through it without thinking to bring Aqua with them. Sorry, Aqua, but that's what happens when you oversleep. So Sora returns Kairi's good luck charm to her, and everybody goes home. But soon Mickey sends a letter to Sora, Riku, and Kairi and tells them to be prepared for their next adventure. Oh, there's also something about a secret room where Xemnas talks to Aqua's old armor, but it's a very slow cutscene, so you don't care. Next up is Kingdom Hearts Recoded, a shitty mobile game turned into a shitty DS game. Jiminy finds a secret message in one of his journals and takes it to Mickey for inspection. To solve the mystery, he puts the book inside of a computer, and that somehow turns the book into computer data, and I'm already lost. It turns out there's bugs inside of it, so they create a data version of Sora to fight them off. But Maleficent and Pete return to take over cyberspace, and that goes about as well as you'd expect. After being defeated for the 25th time, Maleficent mentions a book of prophecies that's capable of creating worlds and telling the future and how it's somehow tied to Jiminy's journal, and she's only bringing this up now because Union Cross. Eventually we get to the only cutscene that actually matters as Sora and Mickey find out that it was Naminé behind the secret message. She inserted a data version of herself inside Jiminy's journal to pass on a message regarding Aqua, Ventus, and Terra. While fixing Sora's mind in Chain of Memories, Naminé was able to see Ventus's memory since he was still part of Sora's heart. But she can't seem to tell him that now because she's back inside of Kairi. But Mickey tells her that he will pass on the message hostage and sends that letter to Sora from the end of KH2. He goes to talk to Yen Sid, who reveals that the defeat of Terranort and Xemnas was part of Xehanort's plan all along, because apparently killing someone's heartless and nobody brings them back to life. You know, I became a fan of this series when it started in 2002, and I really don't remember the writing being this bad. So Yen Sid suggests that Sora and Riku take that Mark of Mastery exam that Aqua and Terra took in order to obtain the power of true Keyblade Masters. Meanwhile, Break, who was brought back to life like Xehanort, is speaking to a younger version of Xehanort, who explains how the Keyblade that can gaze into the future is like the grandfather of all Keyblades, and plans to use its power to take over the world. Break then asks which one of these people will be chosen to be part of Xehanort's Voldemort plan, and just before young Xehanort reveals who it is, we cut to black. Wow, I didn't know Nomura was a Sopranos fan. Up next is Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and holy shit does this one get really stupid really fast. Sora and Riku are taken to Yen Sid, who tells them they must delve into the sleeping worlds to become true masters. They travel from world to world, unlocking keyholes while being trolled by Xehanort's clones along the way. Riku is also struggling with his past and how he should handle the power of darkness, despite that he already did this in Chain of Memories. But back in Radiant Garden, Axel and several other organization members awaken and find out that they're regular people again. So when were their heartless counterparts killed? They try to find the other members when Axel gets an idea. But while waiting for Sora and Riku to return, Mickey receives a letter from Maleficent and Pete that they invaded the castle and kidnapped Minnie. And I guess they just killed Daisy because she never shows up. So Mickey, Donald, and Goofy go to the castle to save Minnie when Maleficent explains how she wants Jiminy's journal for its data and its connection to the prophecy book. But Axel shows up to save the day, and Maleficent and Pete just leave because their contract required them to be in the game for about 4 minutes. Mickey thanks Axel for saving them, but Axel tells them that his real name is Lee because he's not a nobody anymore. And he tells Yen Sid that he'd like to use a Keyblade to help them out. So while Sora, Riku, and Lee are off doing their thing, Mickey starts to wonder just how far Xehanort was planning things. He then realizes that because Terranort was at Destiny Islands when it vanished, that Xehanort has the power to travel his whole body through time and lure Sora and Riku into a trap. Man, what a crafty fox. Sora and Riku return to the real world, but are transported to the Nobody World where they meet up with Xehanort's clones. Young Xehanort explains a bunch of time-traveling mumbo-jumbo, and Sora has a heart-to-heart with Roxas. He also fights off Xemnas, who reveals that the original organization members did have hearts, and he was just fucking with people for a good laugh. Sora defeats him, but then starts to fall asleep as young Xehanort tells him that they were tracking him with an X on his shirt. Man, what is with this guy's obsession with the letter X? So Riku is exploring another part of the world when he runs into Sora trapped by Xehanort. He tries to free him, but gets into a fight with Terranort and is thrown out of the castle. But he finds a way back in and sees that Sora is being held hostage by young Xehanort. But Mickey shows up to save the day, only to end up not saving the day. Then Xehanort shows up with a whole bunch of clones and reveals his true master plan. See, the original organization led by Xemnas was meant to create 13 different versions of Xehanort as part of his plan to have them clash with 7 Warriors of Light to recreate the X-Blade that was destroyed in Birth by Sleep. He's gonna use it to start a new Keyblade War that those mask people were worried about, and unlock Kingdom Hearts to take over the universe. But Donald and Goofy show up to save the day, and it's honestly really sad when you have these two rescuing you from certain death. Lee shows up to retrieve Sora, but is attacked by one of the clones and is revealed to be Sayax, who was actually the one young Xehanort chose at the end of Coded. They stop Xehanort's plan, and all the clones return to their own time. But Xehanort vows to return when he finds his new 13th vessel. So Riku takes Sora back to Yen Sid's tower and is told that Sora is still sleeping. He dives into Sora's dream, fights Ventus's dark armor, and destroys the nightmare, keeping Sora asleep. He's taken to Destiny Island, where he answers a few questions asked by Roxas, Ventus, and Xion. He also talks with Ansem the Wise about how special Sora is and returns from sleep with data in a bottle. So Yen Sid declares Riku a true Keyblade Master for succeeding the test, but Sora ended up failing because Xehanort cheated. Lee summons his Keyblade, and Sora goes back to the sleeping world to fuck around with colorful animals and battle a Frankenstein cat. Riku takes Kairi to Yen Sid's tower, where she's told that she's going to become a Keyblade warrior. The girl that kept getting kidnapped and relied on Sora and Riku to do everything, she's gonna be one of the 7 warriors to fight against Xehanort, which will have no possible negative repercussions at all. Finally, we have Birth by Sleep 0.2 Fragmentary Passage, which is basically just a linear Kingdom Hearts 3 demo. Yen Sid talks to Riku and Kairi about how they have to save Aqua, Terra, and Ventus to defeat Xehanort, and Mickey tells a story about how he tried to save her from the Dark World at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, and the rest of it is pretty much just a flashback from Aqua's perception. Nothing is really added to this story except learning how Mickey got his cool-looking golden key and how that big door from KH1 wasn't really Kingdom Hearts. It wasn't a giant heart-shaped moon, so I guess it was pretty obvious. Riku and Mickey receive magic clothes and are told that they can now travel to the Dark World to save Aqua, while Lee and Kairi go somewhere to continue their training. Sora returns, and Yen Sid tells him that he still needs to prepare for Xehanort. He needs to regain the power that he lost in Dream Drop Distance, and visiting Hercules is the first step to getting it back. So they fly off to Olympus to kickstart Kingdom Hearts 3 after 13 long years of waiting. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Aqua comes across Sensen the Wise in the Dark World, who's been hanging around there since he blew himself up in Kingdom Hearts 2. He tells her about that brown-haired boy that she met all those years ago and how he's the key to saving everyone, because they really like to treat Sora like he's Jesus for some reason. Aqua looks out into the horizon with a newfound hope, because she now knows that as long as Sora is there to save the world, everything will work out okay. Except for the part where she gets snorted. Too soon? So that's basically the entire Kingdom Hearts 3 storyline leading up to Kingdom Hearts 3. Did I leave anything out? Let me know in the comments, and stay tuned for my personal playthrough of the long-awaited Kingdom Hearts 3. Don't forget to check out my Patreon and feel free to support me if you like what I do. Remember to subscribe, click the bell to stay notified on future content, and I'll be back on January 29th for Kingdom Hearts 3. This is Map, signing out.